I'm ready to slash a bird.
No quarter. I am going to be uncomfortable and all over you from start to finish.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a post-NHRL edition of Outside of the Box, as we have all returned from the competition and just reflecting on things. And of course, who else would I have on the show for this but the man of the hour, Corey Nason. So welcome, Corey, to break down the weekend and everything that happened.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely an interesting weekend, that's for sure.
Yes, it definitely had its surprises. But we'll kind of talk about a lot of what happened just to kind of break down. We're not going to go too heavy into what happened in the 12s and 30s because I don't think either of us were paying that much attention to that because there was a lot of other stuff going on. But more just kind of to, talk, broad scope about what happened there. Because, when you look at the 30s, I mean, you did obviously bring 30-pound synthesis, but you were out early in that bracket of things. But it did eventually ended up with Kevin Milczewski winning with Red Storm and Sombra 30-pound being the runner-up. I feel like the 12s and 30s were just all Kevin and the Brazilians. That's kind of how it went.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it was very well deserved for Kevin because I know he's all the way in Seattle. And so for him to come all the way from the West Coast multiple times, not just once or twice, but he keeps coming back to make his 12 and 30 better. And I mean, the thing is rock solid, honestly. So it was a well-earned and well-deserved win. And then all for the Brazilians to come up in this neck of the woods and to show what they have, it was really special, honestly, in my opinion.
Yes, because I mean, with the 12 pounds, the inverse kind of happened where Chupacabra actually took it all and Timber Viper finished second. But I mean, Riobots had a pretty decent showing. Toro Feather and Toro Junior both ended up doing really well. And I think that having so many folks there from Brazil, they just have so much energy, and obviously everybody knows I have a very strong affinity for Brazilian robots. And so it was exciting to see them there and just exciting to see them doing so well.
Absolutely. It would have been discouraging if they had gone up here and they had mechanical errors and malfunctions to the point where it was just a lose-lose. But the fact that they could come in, have the robots ready at the drop of a pin, basically, and just perform as well as they could. It just luck was on their side.
Yes, definitely. And just some, interesting things. And I think that it just goes to show you that, a lot of people look at some of these very good robots, and not to say that they're not very good because they are, but there's still things that can happen where you can take a robot that's won a lot and then they just don't go as far as you'd expect them to. Kablooey Tango was out pretty early in the 30 pounds. And then on the 12 side, Super Scope and Cthulhu, who dominated, just very recently here, were knocked out in the same round a little bit earlier on too. Do you think it was just, having these folks who have gotten really super dialed in, or the Brazilians coming in, with some new things that shook things up in both the 12s and the 30s?
Absolutely. So the Coakley brothers, they're definitely used to what Norwalk currently has. But when the Brazilians came up, now they're playing in a whole different field as far as the type of competitors. I know the Brazilians, they're very, very fast and very on top of you. And their robots are essentially bricks. And so that when they're throwing their robot at you, even if the weapon stops, I don't recall if what had happened, but just when they keep throwing you at them, eventually something is going to break. And sure enough, I guess the hometown heroes, the Ohio boys, they just couldn't stand up to the Brazilians.
Yeah, it certainly happens. So that was definitely exciting. Now, as I mentioned before we talked, before the recording started, I don't think either of us were paying too much attention to what was going on in the 12s and 30s while we were there, because there was certainly a lot of exciting stuff going on the 3-pound side. Now, before I get into your fights, which we will probably talk about a lot. I know that there were a lot of folks that, were interested in Poison Apple. And I really have to shout out to so many people, because if it wasn't for the efforts of a lot of people, Poison Apple would have never got in the box at all. So I obviously I'm not an engineer. I'm still learning, and there's certainly some things that just I don't have the skills for yet. And a lot of people jumped in to help and were able to help get the robot together. But of course, Corey, this really all starts with your assistance in like kind of helping me visualize and like get this thing together that I had in my head and make it a reality. I mean, I'm curious what you thought about seeing like the fully built version of Poison Apple, since you helped me so much in that process.
Anytime we're able to take something that's in our head and physically make a tangible item, it's always a wonderful thing, because even though you can envision it, you don't know if it's going to look exactly like you're imagining, or it's going to look totally different. Some of the things that you might imagine, they may not even be possible in the physical world. However, to physically see the robot together, working, the weapon spinning, it driving, that is a win in my book. Anytime I compete, the robots do it like working. I don't care if it wins or loses, because that's a win in my book. But yes, this was your design, and I was the person that just took that extra step that you weren't able to do. So ultimately, you have no one else to thank but yourself, because this is your design. You wanted that Brazilian-esque robot, but you didn't want to just copy everyone else with a drum. And we kind of looked at what was available, and the Peter bar was very prominent. So kind of take what works and what not, put it together, make it your own style. But it is a very beautiful robot, and it's a big contender, honestly. I'm excited to see where it goes from here, what changes we make together, and how you progress with it.
Absolutely. Just to kind of recap briefly on my day once we did get it working, I was very excited in the preliminary round. I faced Pickle Rick from Team Honeycracked, and I just have to say, like, Ashley, who's the builder and the driver, is just a delight. And I love the robot. It's so fun, and I love it. Like any idea that's just fun and everything. It was very unfortunate that it didn't work out and we didn't get to actually have the fight. But that's definitely something I'd like to revisit in the future as they get that robot more dialed in. So I did get into the bracket, and as you know, Corey, I'm waiting for the bracket to come out, and I'm looking, and all of a sudden I see Poison Apple versus Loophole, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, this can't be correct. this cannot be the thing that's happening right now. And I mean, I realize that Loophole is a newer robot. It hasn't really been around for a long time, and so therefore is not necessarily like highly ranked. But it is essentially facing two very good robots. And I was certainly intimidated, especially because I had a very strong suspicion that one of those robots used in the fight would be Polywog, driven by David Jin, who obviously I drove his robot earlier this year in May, when we took Wasp and made that into Naga. and I finished in the top 16. So I knew that that's what was going to happen, and it was going to be an uphill battle. I was given lots of condolences. But I am happy to say that while I did not win that fight, I did hit both of their robots and pop them both up into the air, and I did not get blown into a million pieces and still had a fully functional robot afterwards. So I will consider that a personal victory, even though it was not a victory in the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're not the winner of the match. You said you ran 3 minutes. Is that what?
I ran about a little over two. A little over two.
Well, the fact that you survived more than a couple seconds in the arena, that's a win, because that just goes to show that the robot can take some hits. And so, yeah, no, that's definitely scary. What was going through your mind when you saw Loophole and the caliber of the builders? Was it a very scary thing?
Well, it was, but at the same time, as everyone knows, I'm also the one that is always out there being like, bring it on. I want to fight Jameson Go. I want to fight like all of these people. And so that's what I've been asking for. And that's what I got. So, I mean, it was exciting to get that sort of opportunity. I mean, I think the thing for me was that being realistic with having a brand new robot, I knew that if I won, it would definitely be an upset, and not something that was expected. So I was like, well, this is probably the only actual match I'm going to get. And that was a little bit unfortunate. But at the same time, I think, I, like you, tend to go into matches with like, yeah, this is a tough robot, but I really like go in with no fear. I'm like, yeah. I'm going to give it my all and just do what I can. And that's all I can do. And that's exactly what I did. So, like I said, there's a lot of people that aren't so fortunate to face that caliber of a bot and end up bringing their bot out in a bag. And that didn't happen. So I will take that as a win.
Absolutely. You can't go into a match thinking I'm terrified, I'm afraid, because you already kind of lost because you're beating yourself. You have to go in with, like you said, realistic expectations to where this is going to be a tough match. It's not going to be a cakewalk. I'm just going to try my best, and I'm just going to see what happens. I mean, that's ultimately what I do anytime I throw my robot in the match, because you don't know. Something stupid could happen, and you have a motor failure, or something isn't tightened down properly and it gets hit, and now it's flying across the arena. So you just never know. Just go in, try your best.
Exactly. So yeah. But that was my day. I did end up doing a grudge match, which was fantastic, and it was a great way to kind of further test out the bot. And for anybody who attends Norwalk and hasn't done the grudges or freestyles, I absolutely recommend it. I mean, you may like be upset because your day is done and like you didn't want that to happen, but it really is a fantastic way to get extra time in a box, which is something that you typically can't replicate at home, to face an opponent and really learn about the way that your robot works.
Exactly. I like the freestyle aspect too, because I haven't done it yet. To my understanding, are you able to pick like your opponent? Like, it's not like, oh, you're just thrown in a hat and they randomly pick. Like, you can ultimately kind of decide. So you're able to kind of gauge, okay, I want to find someone that's of my level, to where it'll be a challenge, but I'm not going to throw my robot in and I'm going to be heavily outdriven and destroyed almost instantly. You want to have that match to where you can practice driving, get your testing in, because I don't really know of any other events anywhere that do freestyle matches. So, like you said, outside of Norwalk, there's not really many places that you can just practice driving and testing outside of a regular competition, where you don't really want to try new things, because if it's the one event for the next 3 or 4 months, it may be discouraging to try something new and it not work. So absolutely take every opportunity you can to practice.
Yes, 100%. So that was pretty much my day. I would say that you had a far more interesting day, Corey. You know, I will say, before getting too ahead of myself with like the end of things, is that I think the reason that it made me so happy to see that is because, a lot of the BattleBots builders and things like that, like, not that they're not talented, they are, but I feel like, they're definitely the ones that get talked about very often, in the conversations about like who are the really great builders and drivers at Norwalk and things like that. And especially like from May on, seeing Synthesis perform in person, I'm like, Corey is really good at this. Like, I don't know why more people aren't talking about Corey. And I think that just this past event really solidified the reason why people should talk about you as somebody who's just like really talented in this space. So, like I said, don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but just like that was something that I was definitely thinking kind of towards the end of everything, which I'll circle all the way back, not to the first fight, but actually your second fight versus Dark Matter, which was not an easy challenge because you're facing a Black Dragon team member essentially. And so, that they're going to bring it, and that was your first KO of the day. And I'll add, you avenged Pause. They had just beat Positively Hysterical in the previous match, so you were able to avenge Pause. But tell me about that match, because I will say the Brazilian team was very, very interested in your robot after that happened.
Yeah, so I have some mixed feelings. So automatically, the Brazilians make incredible robots. I didn't think it was going to be a cakewalk in the least bit. The only thing that kind of surprised me was I've seen pictures of the robot and I've seen it compete. Seeing it in person, it's a lot smaller than I expected it. Next to my robot, because I designed mine to be as big as it could, it kind of looked like a 1 pounder. And so I'm like, this robot's going to be a tank. It's going to hit super hard. It's going to be throwing me around. It's going to be fast, and it's definitely a fast robot. Definitely durable. I wasn't able to knock it, like physically disable it, but it definitely gave me a run for my money. It's so small that anytime I try to get a real good purchase on it, I just couldn't. I would just kind of chip away at it. I mean, I hit it a couple times, but what really turned the match was the first like two or three engagements. So their weapon is 2 discs, and then they have a connecting piece, and their motor sits inside of that connecting piece. It's a hub motor similar to mine. So every impact, it's directed on the motor. Synthesis has a single disc, and I was actually able to impact the centerpiece where the magnets were. And after a couple impacts, I shattered the magnets and killed the weapon. So at that point, it was a driving match, and even then, as small as it was still able to push Synthesis around. But at the end of the day, it's the person with the weapon still going will still have that slight advantage. And I was able to hit them up on the side. They were knocked back down, and I hit them a couple more times, and then I stranded them on the side, and I said, all right, I know if I keep this going, something could turn in their favor. So I don't want to do more damage than I really have to.
Yeah, for sure. Now the interesting thing is that, I realized once I was out, I'm looking at the bracket and I'm like, there is absolutely a path here for Corey to also face Loophole. I was well aware of it. And at the same time, in that moment, I'm also thinking, well, if I somehow would have done something completely impossible, I could have ended up facing Corey and my robot definitely would be in pieces. But you did after getting through Dum Drum, you did face Loophole, and that was definitely an interesting experience for me as well, because I was like, yes, Corey will avenge me. um and but I know this was one that was very important for you, because for a while there's been a lot of people talking and saying, like, acting like Loophole's an impossible bot to beat, and like it's such an advantage and everything, and I know you really wanted to prove that it wasn't. And I think you can definitely add color to that, but I'm sure that was a lot of what drove you to just go at them with everything that you had in that match, to prove and say, like, it doesn't matter, they can come at you with anything and it's not going to matter. Not to mention, like, the whole like piece of Loophole of not knowing who that second robot's going to be, and for a while there was a little bit of question as to what would happen there, but I think you were really glad that it was Caldera.
Yeah, so as we were getting ready to line up, Ian McInerney of Fully Defined was standing next to James with Loophole, the shuffler, the main robot. And then they're calling us, getting us ready to line up, and then Glenn Boxell comes over with Caldera. And then I'm like, all right, I don't really know what's going to happen. Fortunately, I I have forks and I have a wedge. I ran the wedge because they can run horizontals, they can run verts. My wedge, for the most part, it can get under most verts because it has a really sharp edge. So I said, if I run forks, they run a horizontal, I'm dead in the water. So as we're walking down, Ian turns around last second. So I said, okay, I'm going up against Caldera. So we load into the box, and the judge turns to me and says, okay, they're not 51%. They're very close in weight. So in order to win this match, you have to knock out both of them. And I turned to the judge without a hesitation. I said, oh, I fully intend on it. So as soon as the judge, the ref announced 3, 2, 1, go, I just full send the weapon. I just started going at them because I knew if I gave them any chance, like if I stopped moving, I knew it was going to be over. So I first tried to see who was kind of moving quicker. Loophole is actually a pretty quick robot for being a shuffler, and I just kept going back and forth, back and forth. I would toss Caldera away, and then I'd go after Loophole. Loophole is a very TPU-based robot, and the nice part about it is Synthesis's disk is very thin, so it really cuts into TPU. So throughout the match, I kept hitting Loophole away, and I eventually see one of the module pods of the shuffler just fly out of the robot. So I'm like, okay, so he's kind of not going to really be moving around much. And so I start to focus on Caldera. Caldera and we kind of get in the corner, and he hits my armor, and it locks up one of my drive motors. But at this point, I've already disabled Loophole, so now it's just Caldera and I going back and forth. And I got 2 lucky hits. He stopped moving, and I was still able to kind of hobble across the arena, and he ended up getting counted out. But the biggest thing that I wanted to prove, which actually it's funny, I had posted in the Discord the day before, because Norwalk made a video about how Loophole is allowed to be at Norwalk, and a lot of people, they weren't happy with the content because they're not happy with the idea of Loophole, which I understand both sides of the argument. And I said, someone just really needs to kill this thing. And fortunately, I was that guy. I knocked them both out to the point where they both weren't moving. And I said, I made my point. 6 pounds does not mean you're going to win everything.
Yes, absolutely. So I mean, at that point in the competition, the road definitely doesn't get any easier. And the next match was with Chubby Unicorn, who is a very good robot, had beat Chainsaw Kitty, who previously in the night like was just eviscerating people left and right. So you know that you're obviously facing a really good robot there as well. And I mean, I guess after facing two really good robots than just facing one, I don't know if that's any easier or not.
I know Chubby Unicorn. I talk to Tim all the time. I know Chubby is a very durable robot. It hits really hard. It's definitely came up a lot. It's done really, really well, and he's definitely made that robot a beast. Um, and I've always wanted this match. Him and I and Chainsaw Kitty, we talk about how we want like a three-way of this match because we're big, powerful verts and whatnot. And so I was looking at him and he has the two discs with the belt in the center. What I've kind of devised is synthesis's disc, for whatever reason, I don't know why it does this. When I'm aiming at something, the disc will automatically guide the robot into where it needs to go. And Tim and I, in the very beginning, were going head to head. He's winning some of the engagements. I'm winning some of the engagements. And I don't know exactly when it happened, but I got a lucky hit between his weapon and his pulley is 3D printed plastic. I ripped a chunk out and it jammed the belt into the chunk that I ripped out. So it stopped his weapon, but I don't know if he was still trying to spin it up. But then you see smoke start to come out of the robot, and his weapon was down. And then I got a few more pop shots, sending him into the ceiling a couple times, and then one side semi locked up. At this point, we were having more fun than anything because he was like, "Oh, we want to put on a good show." He came to my side and we were trying to line up a good hit to really get it into the ceiling. And between his drive not being at a 100% and kind of swerving, it made it a little hard to line it up. But yeah, no, it was a fun match. I had a good time with Tim. I wasn't really able to fully kill it. I thought I had seen the wheels were trying to spin, but he was high centered on something, so they ended up counting him out. But no, it was definitely a fun one. It wasn't one that I was going in with vengeance to try to kill him. It was more of a friendly rivalry that I just wanted to have a good time with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, also a great match. I was excited that like last time I didn't get to watch a lot of matches box side, and this time I definitely made sure for yours that I was there for those. So that set up a match with Booty Brigade. And so as everyone, at least in my Discord server knows, I was very excited about Booty Brigade. I am an absolute Droopy stan. Like, I love that robot so much. And, you know, the fact that Tommy and Calvin were working together was very exciting. But of course, at the same time, I really wanted to see you kill it. You know, so, because it is, you know, it's a Loophole-esque kind of bot. It's not exactly the same thing because they are the exact same two robots. There's no switching out or anything of that nature. So it's a little bit different in that way. But I knew that it would be a good fight going into it. I, however, did not know just how good or that it would, you know, you know, that it might possibly be the best robot fight that I've ever seen, period, ever. So I mean, like there weren't that many people left in the crowd. I mean, there were some, but like just everybody was screaming. It was so loud in there. You know, take me through that fight because I'm curious to hear the full rundown from your perspective.
All right, so this was as soon as I saw, well, it was Voxel versus Booty Brigade, and I said I really would rather fight Voxel because we're talking Calvin Eba, the guy that wins almost every tournament that he's in, and then Droopy. I understand Droopy was the 3-pound version, not his full 5-pound version. I mean, it still is a scary robot. It still hits really, really hard. So that's Lynx's weakness. That beats Lynx, the droopy robot. And so I really wanted to fight Voxel. Voxel was putting on a good show. I was watching, and I was like, all right, Voxel, you got this. And then it ended up going to Booty Brigade. So now I'm like, all right, I don't have anything to lose. Um, so I went in with my fork configuration because Droopy hits high. He hits probably mid height. He doesn't hit low. And so he's not going to really hit my forks. And if I run a wedge, Calvin is going to eat that up. I'm going to lose the ability to hit him, and it's going to be all over. So we get down there. I'm chit chatting with Calvin and Tommy. I mean, I idolize these two. I envy them. They're the nicest people I've ever met. Win or lose, it was going to be a good fight. I mean, I was emphasis more on the lose than anything, but so I get down there. I put my robot down and I look at Lynx. So Lynx has the beater bar and then it's connected to two uprights of plastic. I look at it and his beater bar actually sits relatively high off the ground. And I'm like looking and I'm like, my forks like just fit underneath his beater bar. And they're also narrow enough they actually fit between his frame. So I look at Calvin, I say, wow, my forks like fit right inside of your frame, Calvin. So I'm like, I didn't really think much. I thought that was interesting. So going in, I knew as soon as it said 3, 2, 1, go, I needed to get my weapon up as fast as possible because I knew any time you lay back with Calvin, he will fully capitalize. So I couldn't lay back. So every chance I could, I was just go, 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 go. And I did hear Red, one of the guys in the audience, I think he's a wrestler. He said, focus on one at a time. So I'm thinking, okay, I need to focus on Lynx because Droopy is intimidating, but it's kind of slow. Calvin is the box rusher. So I just kept going for Calvin. What I noticed was he was spinning his weapon really, really fast, and as he would turn, that was one thing that he always admitted. His turning is really, really poor because rather than turn like a normal robot, he gyros really, really excessively. So I tried to capitalize and it was successful. I was able to get around to the side multiple times and I just kept hitting him and hitting him. There was one impact I thought it was going to break my weapon because my weapon is a hub motor. The motor sits inside of the disc. It allows for more power in certain regard, but it's also more fragile because every impact it gets transferred into the motor. Whereas if you have a belt, there's less force into the motor. It was similar to how Riptide and Hypershock. I got Calvin upside down, and as I'm turning the corner, I go right at the weapon. So he's spinning upside down, so he's spinning down, and I'm spinning up. And just both of our weapons came and collided, and you just see him go straight into the ceiling and then start bouncing around. And I'm like, wow, my weapon's still going. Okay, this is something serious. Um, at one point, Lynx we were stuck nose to nose, and Droopy was able to kind of walk behind me, and he got a pop shot on me. It was a pretty decent hit, so it popped me back. Then I hit Droopy into the ceiling, and then I kept going for Lynx. What I was noticing was I would hit Lynx. He would, when I would get him into the ceiling, he would hit the ceiling, and then he would come back down, and he would actually hit my disc a second time. So it was like I would have a double impact. After I don't know how it happened, but after two of those, his back right side wheel was gone, and he was on the ground. And I turned around, and he wasn't able to maneuver with one side. So I capitalized. I shoved him into the wall, and I started chewing away at the side that didn't have any wheels. I popped him up, and then same thing. He landed on my disc, but the back of his robot hit the disc, and then just everything just can't ejected itself out of the rear end of his butt, and so he was dead in the water. As soon as I stopped seeing him move, and there was a minute and a half, I said, "All right, I need to give it my all," and I just every time I watch that video over and over, I just go full send. I just keep sending it into Droopy. At one point, Droopy got his bar stuck on the cage of one of the camera protectors, the GoPro camera protectors. I said, this is going to be lame if the match ends like this. Luckily, he was able to get himself out, and I think I roofed him at least 3 or 4 more times. And then I noticed one of his blades wasn't spinning, and the wires were kind of like pulled out of the motor. So I said, wow, I don't know what's going on here. This isn't supposed to happen at all. And then I hit him over towards Lynx, and I let him sit there for a minute because as much as I want to KO them, I don't really want to hit them if they don't want me to. And they kept signaling, go, go, go. And I said, okay, I want to break my weapon now because I don't want to break it at finals. So I just kept sending it directly into his weapon. One hard shot into the ceiling, I just saw his battery pop out, and then I just started hearing people get louder and louder. And after 2 big shots, the battery disconnected, the robot was dead, and there was like 2 or 3 seconds left in the match, and I just see them pounding on the glass. I started pounding on the glass. It felt like I was at a hockey game, and like I was just the emotions were so overtaking that I just collapsed. I just went to the ground. It was like every ounce of my energy to win that match. After I won it, I was able to de-escalate, and it was like just hearing the chant synthesis at the very end of the match was just so unreal. And I still don't believe that it happened because it's like you were saying, it's the Calvin Ebas, the Tommy Wongs, the Jameson Goes, all these big BattleBot names or these big names in Norwalk. It's not the Corey Nasons or anything like that. And so at that point, I'm like, all right. I was just so excited. It was just so unreal. But the nicest part was I've been doing this for a long time. I've been doing combat robotics like 8 years. And I've always had like mediocre luck. So this robot, since January of building it up to where it is today, it's just seeing the success that it has. It's finally showing that my hard work of long nights and it's finally paying off. And it was just very exciting. And that'll be a match that, oh, you want to see combat robotics? I'm showing them that match.
Absolutely. We were showing, friends of ours that really aren't super familiar with combat robotics and being like, this is what it's all about. I mean, you don't see many matches like that. I was excited for you. I checked my Fitbit later on that night, and it showed a couple of heart rate spikes during that match. So, I mean, it was so exciting. Definitely. I mean, one that I think is going to get played over and over and over again by everybody that loves the sport and loves, what all the hard work that people put in. And it's, it goes to show that it's worth it. But it was awesome. It was awesome to watch and awesome to see somebody, that I look up to quite a bit achieve that and, want to, like I said, I hope that someday Poison Apple is half as good as Synthesis, and I'll be pretty happy with that.
I honestly think if you have after that match, and I saw the amount of damage, if it doesn't matter if you put enough effort into something, you can achieve whatever you want, and it's anyone's game. It the stars align for anyone. You could see anyone up there.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Don't count yourself out.
Yes, exactly. It's good words to live by. I mean, it would have been hard, I think, no matter how that final match turned out, to top that match with Booty Brigade. I don't even know what could have happened that would have topped that, but you did end up against Monkfish. And I mean, like, I think that, Rachel and Remy did something really special. I mean, I think a lot of people had their eyes on Monkfish as well throughout the entire tournament, obviously. And I don't think seeing it there in the finals was completely unexpected. Um, you know, I definitely expected something closer to what we had seen the previous few matches, but it seems like you just had a little bit of bad luck, as far as the way that went.
Yeah, I mean, what ultimately did me in was the switch. I've broken switches in the past from over tightening them. I don't want that to happen, so I think I just didn't do it tight enough. I mean, Monkfish hits really, really hard to begin with, and I was definitely not set up for it. By the time I got into that match, I was just so exhausted. I had a robot that worked. I just threw the batteries in. I should have went with the wedge to deflect it, but I went with the forks, and they clearly chewed them up. They got one good hit. The robot shut off. I literally picked it up and I took the Allen key and I turned the robot back on, and you could hear it start up like nothing. But I swear I felt like this whole event I was really being tested because I had the Brazilians, and it also felt like I was I was avenging everyone because I had the Brazilians. I was avenging for positively hysterical, and then I had Dumb Drum. Itgraza Jack. His son was competing, and Dumb Drum ended up beating him. So I avenged him. And then Loophole, I avenged for you. Chubby Unicorn, I avenged for Chainsaw Kitty. I don't know who I avenged for Booty
Booty
Brigade.
Brigade.
I'm sure I avenged for someone, but no. Remy and Rachel, they made an awesome robot. It was well deserved that win. It could have went either way, but I'm very happy for them. Um, I'm excited to see them in the finals, but I feel like Synthesis can only get taken out by heavy robots because I got taken out by Droopy a couple events ago. I got taken out by Silent X when he was a shuffler a couple events ago, and now it's Monkfish. But all great robots, so just gotta go at everyone. Gotta fight every single person, take everyone's name.
Absolutely. So I mean, I guess you're probably going to, try and get the robot in as good a shape as possible for November. I mean, what's your kind of plan as far as how you're going to go about looking at things until the finals come around?
So my weakness this event was definitely my drive. On two separate occasions, one of my drive motors gave out. Recently started talking to Pete about my drive issues, and him and I are gonna work something out, something special for finals. I don't want to give away too many secrets or anything like that. But no, if my drive doesn't give out, my weapon has, for as simple as my weapon is, it's fought in 23 or 24 matches and it's never stopped. And I've hit everything too, so I can throw that weapon into almost everything. So once I can get my drive solid, I'm not going to stop. I'm just going to take the robot to the very, very top.
Yeah. Well, I mean, after that performance, I mean, I really hope to see pretty amazing things from Synthesis in November. I think, however it shakes out, I mean, there's so many really good people and really good robots that are going to be going to that event, and I just think that it's going to be super exciting. And I'll be looking forward to watching no matter what happens.
Absolutely. And you got to look for some pandas in the crowd because we were able to get most of the pandas qualified. We have Kevin with IDK, we have Ariel with Beetlejuice. I qualified with my 3 and 30. Robert Run's going to mini bot for my 30. Mar is going to mini bot for my 3. And then we have Chris and Matt who are going to mini bot as well. But then we also have Spartan, Johnny, Johnny will be at finals too, so it's going to be a nice full family affair. That's for sure.
Yes, 100%. And, you know, we've talked about this a lot. I mean, combat robotics really is a family. You know, and you have your different teams and your different segments and things like that. But I mean, the whole community is so welcoming. I think that this was an amazing event. I mean, it was just fun to be there. I think for me, you know, even not getting to fight a whole lot, it was just an enjoyable atmosphere to be around so many people doing the thing that they love. And you know, a lot of people that I consider friends did really well, and you know, I'm happy for everybody that was able to do that.
Absolutely. It's like you said, we're essentially kids. We're adults destroying kids' toys, and so you can't really get mad over that. Just a whole big family getting together.
Exactly. Well, I look forward to November. I look forward to next year. I mean, we haven't got the word on all of the events for NHRL, but there's still the ones that are going to be in Norwalk have been announced, and there's going to be lots of opportunities for folks to qualify. The new bot event is in January, so for those that have been thinking about building a robot or building another robot, it's a really great opportunity for folks to come out and just try new things, because I think honestly of any event, that is the event that's the most like a toss-up, because everything's new and you never know what's going to work and what isn't. So it's a great time to, you know, try something out because you never know.
Absolutely, and I'm excited to see what the Fanwango ring for the hams, to see what we got, tail of four hams or any number of other ham style robots. So it's awesome seeing the wacky ideas that everyone brings to the new bot events.
Yes. And JMO and Aaron, we need more hams. We need all of the hams.
Absolutely.
Well, lots to look forward to. And yeah, I mean, Corey's going to keep building killer robots. I'm going to keep doing what I can to make my robot a killer robot, and you know, we'll see what happens. But for everyone that's watching, you know, please keep doing so. Keep supporting combat robotics. You know, get involved, come to events. It's a lot of fun. You know, you'll have a great time. And like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And we will see everyone next time on the show.